New York City just made history, but maybe not the kind you'll want to celebrate. The new mayor, Zoran Mandani, an immigrant, a socialist, and the first Ugandan Indian to ever win the race, just sent a bold message straight to Donald Trump. But behind that message lies a plan that could either remake New York or completely destroy it. On November 4th, 2025, Zoran Mandani made history by securing victory in the New York City mayoral election, an outcome that would soon be discussed not only in political circles, but in classrooms, documentaries, and dinner table debates around the world. For the first time in its storied history, America's largest and most influential city elected a leader of Ugandan Indian descent. Mandani's win symbolized not merely a political change, but a cultural milestone, a reflection of the city's evolving identity, its deep immigrant roots, and its ever-shifting vision of what leadership looks like in the 21st century. To understand the significance of Mandani's triumph, one must appreciate both his background and the larger political moment in which it occurred. Born to Ugandan Indian parents who immigrated to the United States in the early 1990s, Mandani grew up in Queens, a borough that embodies the multicultural mosaic New York is famous for. His upbringing in a working-class immigrant household exposed him to the struggles of those living between identities, too foreign to be considered fully American in some circles, yet too American to neatly fit into his ancestral heritage. This in-between space shaped his worldview, instilling in him a belief that progress arises from inclusion, dialogue, and the constant reimagining of what a city can be. His campaign, launched in the spring of 2024, began as an underdog story. Few took him seriously when he first announced his candidacy. New York politics had long been dominated by establishment figures, seasoned politicians with vast donor networks and deep institutional ties. Mandani, by contrast, ran a grassroots campaign that relied heavily on community outreach, social media engagement, and the mobilization of younger voters who had grown weary of conventional political promises. His rallies, often filled with a diverse mix of attendees, immigrants, working-class New Yorkers, students, artists, and progressives, felt more like cultural gatherings than traditional political events. Central to Mandani's message was his insistence that New York could no longer afford to maintain the status quo. His campaign slogan, "Rebuild the People's City," captured both his populist tone and his broader vision. A metropolis that prioritized human welfare over corporate profit, housing stability over speculative development, and social justice over political expediency. His platform was unapologetically progressive, and it stirred both enthusiasm and controversy. Among his most talked about proposals was the legalization of prostitution, a move he argued would protect vulnerable individuals, reduce crime, and generate significant tax revenue for the city. Critics, however, claimed that such a policy risked normalizing exploitation and damaging the city's international reputation. Still, Mandani maintained that moral progress required the courage to confront complex realities rather than avoid them. Equally divisive was his decision to remain neutral on questions of Sharia law when asked during a televised debate. Rather than directly endorsing or rejecting specific interpretations, Mandani emphasized the importance of religious freedom, cultural respect, and the separation of church and state. To some, his restraint reflected wisdom and inclusivity. To others, it appeared evasive or politically calculated. Yet even his detractors conceded that Mandani possessed a rare ability to navigate the fault lines of identity, politics with composure and nuance, a skill increasingly scarce in the modern political arena. Beyond his policies, Mandani's charisma and authenticity set him apart. His speeches carried the rhythm of someone who had lived the very challenges he described. He spoke of his parents' early struggles to secure stable housing, his first-hand experiences of discrimination, and his deep appreciation for the city's resilience. In his words, New York was not simply a collection of skyscrapers and neighborhoods. It was a living organism, defined by the people who built and sustained it generation after generation. Election night reflected that vision in full color. As results poured in and the realization of his victory took hold, supporters flooded the streets outside City Hall. Flags from dozens of nations waved in the cold November air. Strangers embraced one another, chanting his name in accents from across the world. The city that had once turned its back on immigrants now found itself led by one. But perhaps the most striking moment came not from the crowd, but from Mandani himself. Standing before the cameras, his voice steady but emotional, he declared, "New York City has always been a city built by immigrants, and as of tonight, it is led by one." The crowd erupted. Those words resonated far beyond the city's borders, echoing through national headlines and social media feeds. For many, it was a statement of hope and pride. For others, particularly critics of immigration policy, it was a provocation. Then came the moment that would define his victory speech, a pointed message directed at former President Donald Trump. Without naming him outright, Mamdani addressed what he described as the politics of division, stating that New York would never be a city that turns away those who seek a better life. He spoke of unity, resilience, and compassion as the guiding principles of his administration, a clear contrast to the populist nationalism that had shaped the previous decade. "We are not afraid of difference," he said. "We are built from it." Political analysts quickly seized upon the speech as a turning point in New York's, and perhaps America's, political trajectory. For years, debates around immigration, economic inequality, and cultural identity had dominated the national conversation. Mamdani's victory seemed to crystallize those issues into a single narrative: a multicultural city choosing inclusivity over isolation, diversity over division. Yet his ascent also raised pressing questions. Could New York's ambitious progressive agenda coexist with its fragile economy? Would his idealism translate into effective governance? And perhaps most importantly, could a city so defined by wealth disparity, housing crises, and political fatigue truly transform under new leadership? Mamdani himself appeared undaunted. In interviews following his win, he emphasized pragmatism over ideology, describing his mission as a bridge between the dreams of the people and the realities of policy. He surrounded himself with a diverse advisory team: activists, economists, small business owners, and community leaders, reflecting his belief that sustainable change required collaboration across differences. Over the following days, commentary flooded in from across the globe. Some international observers celebrated his election as a triumph of pluralism and democracy, citing it as evidence that America's urban centers remained bastions of progress. Others expressed skepticism, noting that symbolic victories often falter under the weight of bureaucracy and financial constraints. Still, even his critics could not deny that Zoran Mamdani's rise marked something extraordinary. In a city where ambition and identity have always collided, he stood as both a symbol of possibility and a test of its limits. His victory was not merely about breaking barriers of race, religion, or nationality. It was about redefining what leadership means in an era of division and transformation. As dawn broke over Manhattan the next morning, the skyline looked the same: steel, glass, and light stretching endlessly toward the horizon. But for millions of New Yorkers, something intangible had shifted. The city had chosen a new direction, one that sought not to erase its contradictions but to embrace them. In Zoran Mamdani, New York had found a mayor who embodied its most enduring truth: that its power lies not in uniformity, but in the unending diversity of its people.
So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant.
And as the results were announced that night, Zoran Mamdani stood before the crowd and declared that New York City was, once again, being led by an immigrant. That statement carried weight. More than a slogan, it was a reflection of the city's enduring spirit. New York has always been a place built by immigrants, shaped by their labor, dreams, and resilience. Now, for the first time, one of their own would govern it. The reaction was immediate and emotional. Many celebrated his words as a proud acknowledgement of the city's heritage and as a pointed response to the ongoing migrant crisis. Cities like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, often called sanctuary cities, have long been safe havens where migrants face fewer risks of deportation and can pursue better opportunities. But Mamdani's vision extends beyond symbolism. He aims to strengthen immigrant communities by expanding their freedoms and opportunities within the city. To make this possible, he has proposed a controversial yet ambitious funding plan, increasing taxes on the wealthy to support social and economic programs designed to uplift the city's most vulnerable residents.
The idea of taxing wealthy people has been really popular kind of worldwide, but particularly in the UK it's gained some traction. And Mamdani's plans were to tax those who have an income of over $1 million, 2%, which he believes will raise around $4 billion for New York City people, which they can then use on resources to make life a bit more affordable for them. Some of the things that he's proposed is city-run grocery stores to make food cheaper, better run public transport as well.
Mamdani's proposal to tax the wealthy has drawn both praise and criticism. Supporters see it as a fair and necessary step toward addressing inequality, an idea gaining traction across the globe. Yet, critics warn of an economic ripple effect that could harm the very communities such policies are meant to help. The concern is simple. If high-income earners are taxed too heavily, many may choose to relocate to states with friendlier tax environments. California offers a telling example. Once a magnet for opportunity and innovation, it has seen a steady outflow of wealthy residents and major businesses to states like Texas, Arizona, Nevada, where there's no state income tax, and Florida. Even in areas like high school sports, the shift in population has reshaped where resources and opportunities flow. The underlying cause, many argue, is the rising cost of living. If New York City follows a similar path, the fear is that its wealthiest residents could also leave, eroding the city's tax base and placing a heavier burden on those who remain. This would leave fewer resources for social programs and public services, the very initiatives the new tax aims to support. Beyond taxation, Mamdani's economic platform also includes rent freezes, a policy that the media has touched on only briefly, but holds significant implications for both tenants and property owners alike.
About some of these proposals, let's just talk about rent. Everyone here in New York complains, gosh, it's so expensive, whether you buy or whether you rent. Let's say you freeze rents. Well, if you freeze rents, then apartment owners are not able to effectively raise the rent to cover the cost of maintenance. What if the roof leaks? What if you have a problem with the plumbing? What if it needs, what if there are rats coming in and you need to have the foundation sealed? So what you're going to see is that there will be virtually no reinvestment, no CapEx, no capital expenditures to maintain the quality of property. So on the one hand, you say, oh, isn't it wonderful? My rent's not going up. Maybe even it's going down. Well, actually, no, it's not, because the quality of the building is going to.
A rent freeze at its core functions as a strict price ceiling, a limit on how much landlords can charge tenants. On paper, it sounds like a compassionate solution to New York City's sky-high rent crisis. After all, millions of residents struggle to afford housing, and capping rent seems like a way to keep homes accessible. But beneath the surface, the policy carries complex economic trade-offs. When landlords are prevented from raising rents, their revenue remains static while expenses, like maintenance, taxes, and mortgage payments, continue to rise. Anyone who has owned a home, rental property, or even managed an Airbnb knows that upkeep is constant and costly. Buildings require repairs, upgrades, and compliance with safety standards, all of which demand funding. Under strict rent controls, property owners often struggle to cover these expenses, which can lead to deferred maintenance and deteriorating housing conditions. Over time, this dynamic can have a domino effect. Landlords facing mounting costs may be accused of neglecting their properties, earning the label of slumlords, when in reality, the financial strain makes proper upkeep nearly impossible. As buildings age without adequate investment, entire neighborhoods can decline, ironically harming the very residents rent freezes are meant to protect. While rent freezes can bring short-term relief, they rarely address the root causes of housing inequality. As seen in places like California, such measures often lead to unintended consequences: fewer rental units, lower property quality, and an eventual tightening of the housing market. In the long run, these well-intentioned policies tend to create more challenges than they solve, a concern shared by many economists and housing experts alike.
Job creators are moving to New York City? Probably not. You think investors are moving to New York City? Probably not. You think families who want safety for their kids and the criminals to be kept into prison are going to be going to New York City? No. You think people that are pro Second Amendment, safety, low taxes are going to be moving to New York City? No.
Now that's Patrick Bet David, who also, weighed in on the issue, talking about, who will be moving to New York City after the election, right? But then listen to this.
No. But who will be moving to New York City? If you're a criminal, it's a great time to move to New York City. Think about it. He wants to let people out of prison. Guess what? I'm not telling you to move there, but it's a great policy. If you're somebody that doesn't want to work at all, and you just want entitlement programs, this is a massive opportunity to move to New York City. Massive opportunity to move to New York City. If you're an illegal immigrant, are you kidding me? Like, this is heaven for you. He will protect you. Move to New York City. He will protect you. He's for you. So I think New York City is about to have a net migration increase, not decrease. Everyone's thinking they're going to lose people.
Patrick Bet David also weighed in on the conversation, offering his own sharp perspective on the post-election climate in New York City. A well-known entrepreneur and commentator, Bet David is often recognized for his ability to read cultural and economic undercurrents before they surface in mainstream debate. This time was no different. Following Zoran Madani's historic mayoral victory, he raised a thought-provoking question. Who exactly would want to move to New York City under this new political direction? His point wasn't simply rhetorical. Bet David's commentary reflected a growing sentiment among business leaders and investors who worry that the city's progressive turn could discourage entrepreneurship and drive away the kind of talent that built New York into a global powerhouse. He noted that while Mamdani's policies might inspire excitement among working-class residents and young activists, they could also send signals of uncertainty to corporations, property developers, and innovators who crave stability. To Bet David, the issue was not about ideology, but about incentives. How a city encourages people to stay, invest, and create. In his analysis, Bet David drew on economic patterns visible across the United States. Over the past decade, a steady migration of both businesses and individuals from high-tax, regulation-heavy states such as New York and California to low-tax states like Texas, Florida and Tennessee has reshaped America's economic geography. These states have attracted tech firms, manufacturing plants, and entire creative industries, all looking for lower costs and fewer bureaucratic obstacles. Bet David argued that if New York doubled down on taxing the wealthy and expanding welfare programs without clear fiscal balance, it could accelerate that same outflow of capital and talent. He emphasized that the kind of people a city attracts determines its future character. If you make it too expensive for builders, dreamers, and innovators to thrive, he suggested, you may end up replacing them with individuals who are dependent on the system rather than those who contribute to it. His statement stirred intense discussion online. Supporters agreed that Bet David was highlighting a hard truth about economic sustainability, warning that ideals, however noble, must coexist with financial practicality. Critics, however, accused him of oversimplifying complex social issues and of framing working-class migrants unfairly. Regardless of where one stood, his comments opened a broader conversation about what kind of city New York aspired to become under its new leadership. Would it remain a magnet for ambition, creativity, and investment, or evolve into something entirely different, a sanctuary for social reform but perhaps a less fertile ground for wealth creation? Bet David's reflections, though controversial, touched a nerve precisely because they spoke to the heart of New York's identity crisis. How to balance compassion with competitiveness, progressivism with productivity. New York has always thrived on contradiction, art and commerce, luxury and poverty, chaos and order. The same city that celebrates diversity and freedom is also one of the most expensive places on earth to live. For decades, its allure has rested on the belief that opportunity outweighs difficulty. Yet Bet David's warning suggested that this delicate balance might be shifting. If taxes rise and regulatory burdens grow heavier, even the city's unmatched cultural vibrancy may not be enough to keep its most ambitious minds from seeking new horizons. Ultimately, Bet David's remarks weren't merely about politics, they were about trajectory. Cities, like individuals, have life cycles. They grow, peak, decline, and reinvent themselves. His question, who will move to New York now, wasn't rooted in cynicism, but in curiosity about which stage the city had entered. Was New York on the brink of renewal under new leadership, or was it beginning to price itself out of its own greatness? The answer, as he implied, would depend not just on the mayor's policies, but on whether the city could once again reconcile its dreams with the realities of the people who call it home. Patrick Bet-David offered a sharp critique of New York City's direction following Zoran Mandani's election. He argued that while the city might see an influx of new residents, it may not attract the type of people who drive innovation and economic growth. In his view, higher taxes and looser immigration policies could push entrepreneurs, business leaders, and other skilled professionals to relocate elsewhere, similar to what has already happened in parts of the United Kingdom, where many wealthy individuals have moved to places like Dubai to avoid higher tax burdens. Bet-David warned that such an exodus could further strain New York's economy, which is already spending heavily on public programs, such as migrant shelters in neighborhoods like Queens and Harlem. Losing high-income earners, he suggested, could deplete the city's tax base, making it more difficult to support its growing social costs. Beyond the economic implications, some commentators have expressed concern about the political and cultural effects of Mandani's immigrant-focused agenda. They argue that immigration is increasingly being used as a political tool, and that his rhetoric celebrating immigrants could shift policy priorities away from other long-standing communities, particularly Black Americans who have deep historical roots in the city. This concern has been echoed in nearby cities. For example, Musab Ali, a Pakistani American running for mayor of Jersey City, has built his campaign on expanding protections and financial aid for undocumented immigrants. His decision to refer to himself as the Black Zoran Mandani has sparked controversy, with critics questioning the appropriation of Black identity and the broader implications for representation and race relations in politics. Critics worry that as more progressive, immigrant-focused candidates gain traction, cities could see growing tensions among communities competing for political influence and economic resources. They also argue that if policies discourage investment and job creation, major metropolitan areas like New York and Chicago may experience further decline, while lower-cost southern states, such as Mississippi, which is considering removing its state income tax, could become more attractive destinations for businesses and families seeking affordability. Ultimately, the debate highlights a crossroads in American urban politics, one that pits inclusivity and social reform against concerns over economic sustainability and cultural displacement. The outcomes in cities like New York may well shape national conversations about migration, taxation, and urban renewal for years to come.